Wander Franco, once a rising star and shortstop of the Tampa Bay Rays, is now a name synonymous with infamy. Convicted of sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl in the Dominican Republic, Franco's crimes include charges of sexual exploitation, human trafficking, and a chilling abuse of power that shattered lives. In this documentary, we dive deep into the horrors of his actions, dissecting the psychological and psychoanalytic forces behind his crimes. Through the lens of science, we'll unravel why Franco committed these atrocities and what drove a celebrated athlete to such darkness. Why focus on Wander Franco? Because his crimes aren't just shocking, they're a psychological enigma. A young man with fame, wealth, and a $182 million contract. Franco seemed to have it all. Yet, he orchestrated a calculated, predatory relationship with a vulnerable teenager, paying her mother thousands to enable his abuse. His methods were cold, deliberate, and hauntingly manipulative, making his case a chilling study in the psychology of power and perversion. Picture this: a 21-year-old star athlete using his wealth to send helicopters to fetch a 14-year-old girl, luring her into a secret world of exploitation. The brutality lies not just in the act, but in the betrayal of trust, the grooming, the calculated silence he bought with cash. This isn't just a crime. It's a descent into a moral abyss, a case so twisted demands we ask, what kind of mind could do this to understand Wander Franco's crimes? We have to start at the beginning, his childhood in the Dominican Republic. Born in Bonny in 2001, Franco grew up in a modest family, surrounded by baseball's feverish culture. His father and uncles were minor league players, and young Wander was groomed for greatness from the cradle. By 16, he signed a $3.8 million deal with the Tampa Bay Rays. Hailed as a prodigy, but beneath the surface of this golden boy narrative, there are cracks. Psychologically, early exposure to intense pressure can fracture a developing mind. Franco was a star before he was a man, thrust into a world of adulation and expectation. This kind of pedestal can breed narcissistic personality traits, a sense of entitlement, a belief that rules don't apply to you. Psychoanalytically, we might see this as a defense mechanism. A young boy, desperate to maintain control of a world that demanded perfection, begins to view others as objects to manipulate. Was there trauma? We don't have public records of overt abuse, but the absence of a stable emotional anchor could have played a role. Growing up in a hypermasculine sports culture, Franco may have internalized toxic ideals of dominance and power. Object relations theory suggests that early relationships shape how we see others. If Franco's world taught him that people, especially women, were tools for his success, it could have planted the seeds for his predatory behavior. By the time he was 21, the age gap between him and his 14-year-old victim wasn't just a number. It was a power chasm, one he exploited with chilling precision. Franco's crime wasn't a spur-of-the-moment lapse. It was a calculated campaign. In December 2022, he began a 4-month relationship with a 14-year-old girl in the Dominican Republic. According to prosecutors, he met her online, a digital predator stalking his prey from behind a screen. He sent helicopters and cars to bring her to his home in Bonny, where he sexually abused her. He paid her mother, Martha Vanessa Chevalier Almonte, thousands of dollars, $17,000 to his own mother, no less, to secure her silence and consent. This wasn't just abuse. It was a transaction, a grotesque commodification of a child's body. From a psychological perspective, this screams antisocial personality traits. Franco displayed a chilling lack of empathy, treating his victim as a means to an end. Why a 14-year-old? Ego-dystonic pedophilia might be at play, a sexual attraction to minors that Franco may have struggled to reconcile with his public persona. Psychoanalytically, this could stem from an arrested development, where Franco's emotional maturity lagged behind his fame. A 14-year-old, impressionable and powerless, was someone he could control, unlike the adult world that scrutinizes every move. The choice of a minor reflects a need for dominance, a twisted attempt to reclaim power in a life where he was both worshipped and caged by expectations. The money paid to the mother? That's classic grooming behavior, a tactic predators use to silence complicity and ensure access to their victims. It's a psychological power play, one that leaves you cold imagining the girl's terror as she was shuttled to Franco's lair. Imagine the scene. A teenage girl, barely 14, stepping out of a helicopter in the dead of night, her heart pounding as she's driven to a sprawling villa in Bonnie. The man waiting for her isn't just any man. He's Wander Franco, a name plastered on billboards, a god in cleats. But in that house, he's something else entirely. Prosecutors say Franco had sex with her twice in December 2022, each encounter a violation that stripped away her innocence. The details are sparse but gut-wrenching. A young girl, manipulated and isolated, her mother complicit in her exploitation. The house, a symbol of Franco's wealth, became a prison of fear. Witnesses later reported seeing the girl, pale and withdrawn, leaving property, her eyes hollow with a trauma no child should know. Police raids on the mother's home uncovered $68,500 and $35,000 in cash, blood money. Prosecutors called it proof of Franco's payments to buy silence. Cognitive dissonance likely plagued Franco here. He knew his actions were wrong, yet his entitlement allowed him to justify them. She wanted it. He might have told himself, a classic rationalization of predators. The mother's conviction for sexual trafficking, sentence of 10 years, paint a picture of a family betrayed by greed and manipulation. The horror lies in the details. A child sold by her own mother. A star athlete uses fame to prey on the vulnerable. It's a nightmare that lingers, a stain on the soul of everyone who hears it. Let's dig deeper into Franco's psyche. From a psychological standpoint, he may exhibit traits of narcissistic personality disorder. NPD is characterized by grandiosity, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. Franco's actions, using his wealth and status to exploit a minor, suggest a belief that he was above the law, untouchable. This isn't just arrogance. It's a pathological need for control, rooted in a fragile ego that craves validation. Psychoanalytically, we might look at Freudian defense mechanisms like projection. Franco may have projected his own insecurities onto his victim, seeing her as an extension of his power rather than a person with rights. His choice of a minor also points to paraphilic tendencies, specifically pedophilia or hebephilia. These disorders often stem from unresolved trauma or distorted sexual development, perhaps triggered by Franco's early immersion in a high-pressure, hypersexualized sports culture. Attachment theory offers another lens. If Franco lacked secure emotional bond as a child, he may have sought control through predatory relationships, mistaking dominance for intimacy. The payments to the mother suggest a transactional mindset, a belief that everything, even morality, has a price. This is the mind of a man who saw the world as his to buy and break. Franco's house of cards began to crumble in August 2023, when social media posts exposed his relationship with the teenager. The Tampa Bay Rays placed him on administrative leave, and by January 2024, he was arrested in the Dominican Republic. Prosecutors built a damning case, presenting evidence of cash transfers and witness testimonies. In June 2025, a 3-judge panel found him guilty of sexual abuse, handing down a 2-year suspended sentence, a slap on the wrist, some argued, for a crime that shattered lives. The girl's mother, convicted of trafficking, got 10 years, a stark contrast that left many reeling. Franco's career, once a beacon of promise, is likely over. Immigration experts say his conviction for a crime of moral turpitude makes a U.S. visa impossible, effectively barring him from Major League Baseball. The trial was a spectacle of shame. Franco, head bowed, rubbed his eyes as the verdict was read, a far cry from the confident athlete who once dazzled crowds. Witnesses described him as detached, almost robotic, as if the gravity of his actions hadn't fully sunk in. Dissociation, a psychological coping mechanism, might explain this. Franco may have distanced himself from his guilt, unable to face the monster he'd become. Media reports painted a grim picture. A fallen star, one headline read, while another called him a predator in plain sight. The public's outrage was palpable, with ex-posts screaming for justice. How could someone with so much throw it all away for this? Philosophically, Wander Franco's story is a tragedy of hubris, a modern Icarus who flew too close to the sun. From an existentialist perspective, Franco's crimes reflect a refusal to confront his own freedom and responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre might argue that Franco chose to deny his moral agency, treating his victim as an object to satisfy his desires rather than a fellow human with inherent dignity. His actions scream of nihilism, a belief that nothing matters, that rules are for others. Yet, in his downfall, we see the limits of this worldview. The suspended sentence, while lenient, chains him to a life of infamy, a pariah in the sport he once ruled. From a Kantian lens, Franco's failure was in violating the categorical imperative. He treated his victim as a means, not an end. His payments to her mother were a perverse attempt to buy morality, as if human dignity could be priced. The horror of his story lies in its universality. How many others, cloaked in fame or power, walk the same path? Franco's then forces us to ask, what does it mean to be human when you've lost your humanity? His legacy is a warning, a chilling reminder that even the brightest stars can fall into darkness. As we close, picture that 14-year-old girl, her life forever altered by a man who should have been a hero. The helicopters, the cash, the betrayal, they're not just details, they're scars. Franco's story isn't just about one crime. It's about a system that elevates men to gods, then watches them crumble. Psychologically, he's a case study in power unchecked, a man whose ego outgrew his soul. Philosophically, he's a mirror to our own failures, a reminder that evil often hides behind a smile. This documentary leaves you with a knot in your stomach, a racing heart, and a question: how close are we all to the edge of that abyss?